Dr. Yuna pressed her long fingers against the control panel of the research ship Harmony's Edge. The blue lights on the screen showed tiny life forms floating in the atmosphere of the dead planet below. Each small dot meant a new discovery. Each discovery meant hope for her people back home. The Villani had always been curious about life in the galaxy. Their tall, thin bodies and pale skin made them perfect for exploring space. They could live in low gravity for months without getting sick. Their big eyes could see details that other species missed. Most importantly, they loved learning about new things instead of fighting wars. Yuna looked at the data again. The bacteria samples from this planet were unlike anything she had seen before. They could survive in the cold vacuum of space and somehow eat radiation for food. Her team had been studying them for 3 weeks now, and every day brought new surprises. "Jinwoo, are you getting any messages from home?" Yuna asked her communication officer. Jinwoo sat at his station nearby, his 4 fingers moving quickly over the communication controls. Like all Villani, he had learned to use technology as easily as breathing. But today, something was wrong with his usual calm expression. "No messages for 7 days now," Jinwoo said quietly. "That is very strange. Command usually sends updates every 2 days. Yuna felt a cold feeling in her chest. The Kepler 442 system was far from their home worlds, but not so far that communication should stop completely. The Galactic Union had communication stations all through this part of space. Messages should flow easily between star systems. "Maybe the stations are having technical problems," Yuna said, trying to sound hopeful. But she did not believe her own words. Jinwoo shook his head. "I checked all the frequencies. I even tried the old emergency channels. Nothing. It is like this whole sector of space has gone silent." Yuna walked to the main viewing window of their ship. Outside, the stars looked the same as always, beautiful points of light scattered across the darkness. But now that darkness seemed more threatening than peaceful. The Harmony's Edge was a good ship, but it was built for science, not fighting. Its hull was made of light metals that could survive asteroid impacts and radiation storms. Its engines were quiet and efficient for long research trips. Its only weapons were mining lasers used to collect rock samples. "Doctor, I am worried," said Mira, their youngest team member. She was checking the long-range sensors at her station. "The sensor readings from the outer system are very strange." Yuna moved to look at Mira's screen. The young Villani was right to be worried. The sensors showed empty space where they should detect the automated beacons that marked safe travel routes. Those beacons had been there for hundreds of years, guiding ships through the system. "Could they be broken?" Yuna asked. "All of them at the same time?" Mira's voice was getting higher with fear. "That seems impossible." Jinwoo suddenly stood up from his station. His pale skin had turned even whiter than usual. "Doctor, you need to see this right now." Yuna rushed to his station. On his screen, she saw something that made her heart beat faster. 17 massive objects were moving toward them from the outer planets of the system. The computer was trying to identify what they were, but kept showing error messages. "Ships," Yuna whispered. "Those are ships, but they were not like any ships in the Galactic Union databases. These vessels were huge, much bigger than any civilian transport. Their hulls looked rough and angular, like they were built for war instead of exploration. Heat signatures showed they had powerful engines that burned much hotter than normal. "Should we try to contact them?" Mira asked. Before Yuna could answer, her communication system came alive with harsh, angry sounds. The universal translator tried to make sense of the alien language, but could only give broken pieces of meaning. "Surrender. Vessel. Prepare. For a death." The translator kept working, and slowly the message became clearer. "Surrender your vessel. Prepare for boarding. Resistance will result in immediate execution." Yuna felt her legs become weak. Her people were scientists and explorers. They had never fought a war. The worst conflict in Villani history had been an argument about mining, rights that lasted 3 days and ended with both sides sharing the asteroid. "What do we do?" Mira asked, tears forming in her large eyes. Yuna looked around at her small crew. There were only 6 Villani on the Harmony's Edge. They had no weapons, No military training and no experience with hostile aliens. Their ship could not outrun the approaching fleet, and it certainly could not fight them. The 17 enemy ships surrounded their vessel like predators circling prey. Yuna could see them more clearly now through the viewing window. Their hulls were covered in scars from old battles. Strange symbols were painted on their sides in what looked like dried blood. These were not explorers or traders. These were warriors. "We surrender," Yuna said quietly to Jinwoo. "Send them that message. Tell them we are peaceful researchers with no weapons." Jinwoo sent the message, but the response was not comforting. A new voice came through the communication system, speaking an accented but clear galactic standard. "You will prepare your ship for boarding. Any attempt to resist or flee will result in the destruction of your vessel and the execution of your crew. You have 5 minutes to comply." Yuna closed her eyes and tried to think. Her people believed that all intelligent life in the galaxy could be reasoned with. They believed that understanding and communication could solve any problem. But the cold hatred in the alien voice suggested that these beings were very different from anything the Villani had encountered before. Through the viewing window, she could see smaller ships leaving the enemy fleet. Boarding craft, moving fast, toward the Harmony's edge. In a few minutes, hostile aliens would be walking through their ship deciding whether the crew lived or died. Yuna opened her eyes and looked at her team. Young Mira was crying silently at her station. Jinwoo was still trying to send distress calls, but no friendly ships were close enough to help. The other crew members were holding each other, preparing for whatever came next. "I am sorry," Yuna said to them. "I led you into danger." "No," Jinwoo said firmly. "You led us to discovery. That is what we do. That is who we are." The first boarding craft attached to their ship with a loud metal clang that echoed through the hull. Soon, everything would change forever. The boarding hatch on the Harmony's edge exploded inward with a burst of sparks and smoke. Through the hole came creatures that made Yuna's blood turn cold. They walked on 2 legs like Villani, but that was where any similarity ended. These aliens were covered in thick, dark scales that looked like natural armor. They stood much taller than any Villani, with broad shoulders and long arms that ended in clawed hands. Their faces had small, cruel eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. Each one carried weapons that looked like they could punch holes through the ship's hull. The leader of the boarding party looked around the research lab with disgust. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Pathetic," he said in broken galactic standard. "Look at these soft things. No weapons, no armor, no strength. How do such weak creatures survive in space?" Yuna stepped forward, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are peaceful researchers from the Galactic Union. We have done nothing to harm you or your people." The alien leader laughed, showing rows of pointed teeth. "I am Commander Thek of the Krethak Empire. You speak of peace like it matters. In this galaxy, only the strong survive. The weak exist to serve the strong." 2 more Krethak soldiers pushed the Villani crew together in the center of the lab. Their claws left scratches on the metal floor where they walked. Yuna noticed that each soldier bore scars from old battles like marks of honor. "What do you want from us?" Yuna asked. "Everything," Commander Thek replied. "Your ship's databanks, your navigation charts, information about your home worlds and their defenses." Jinwoo spoke up from behind Yuna. "Our people have no defenses. We are scientists and explorers. We do not build weapons or fight wars." Commander Thek moved closer to Jinwoo, his clawed hand grabbing the Villani's thin neck. "Then your people are fools, and fools do not deserve to live." He dragged Jinwoo to the ship's main computer terminal. "Access your navigation database. Show me the routes to your home worlds." Jinwoo's hands shook as he worked the controls. Yuna watched in horror as her colleague was forced to reveal the locations of peaceful Villani colonies. Each star system that appeared on the screen meant millions of innocent lives that might soon be in danger. "Excellent," Commander Thek said, studying the star maps. "Rich worlds with no military protection. My fleet will enjoy conquering them." "Please," Yuna begged. "Our people have never hurt anyone. We only want to learn and explore." "That is your weakness," Commander Thek replied. "You explore while we conquer. You learn while we take. You will serve as an example to other weak species in this sector. The commander spoke into a communication device attached to his armor. Soon, more Krethak soldiers arrived on the ship. They began copying all the data from the research computers and downloading the ship's complete navigation records. Yuna realized with growing horror that the Harmony's Edge contained detailed maps of dozens of star systems in Union space. Trade routes, colony locations, defense station positions, everything the Krethak would need to launch attacks throughout the region. Commander Thek, one of the soldiers reported, "We have found something interesting. These creatures were monitoring communication frequencies across multiple sectors. Show me," Thek ordered. The soldier activated a display showing the communication networks that Jinwoo had been monitoring. The Krethak leader's eyes grew brighter as he studied the information. "Perfect," he said. "We can use these networks to coordinate attacks on multiple worlds at once. No warning signals will reach Union Command before we strike." Yuna felt sick. Her research mission was about to become the key to a massive military invasion. Peaceful, worlds would burn because of the information her ship carried. Commander Thek turned back to the Vellani crew. "You have served your purpose. Now you will serve as a message to others." He raised his weapon toward Yuna, but stopped when another Krethak soldier called out, "Commander, War Leader Vex wants to speak with you immediately." Thek lowered his weapon with obvious disappointment. "Guard these prisoners. I will deal with them after I speak with the war leader." After Thek left, the remaining Krethak soldiers tied the Vellani crew's hands and forced them to sit on the floor. Yuna looked around at her team and saw fear in every face. They were researchers, not heroes. They had never imagined facing death in the cold vacuum of space. Jinwoo managed to move closer to Yuna while the guards were not watching. "Doctor," he whispered, "I might be able to do something." "What do you mean?" Yuna whispered back. "Before they captured the ship, I was trying to send distress calls on different frequencies. Most of them were blocked, but I found some old emergency channels that might still work. The Union is too far away to help us now," Yuna said sadly. "Not the Union," Jinwoo replied. "There are other frequencies in the old databases, channels that reach toward the restricted sectors." Yuna looked at him with confusion. "The restricted sectors are empty. No one lives there." "Maybe," Jinwoo said. "But the old star charts show inhabited systems in those regions. The databases call them dangerous, but they never explain why." One of the Krethak guards noticed them whispering and walked over with his weapon ready. "No talking," he growled. Yuna nodded and looked away, but her mind was racing. She remembered stories from deep space pilots about strange ships seen near the edge of known space. Ships that looked primitive, but moved with purpose. Most Union citizens dismiss such tales as spacer folklore. But what if the stories were true? What if there were other species out there, species that the Union avoided for reasons lost to history? Commander Thek returned to the research lab with a satisfied expression. "War Leader Vex is pleased with our discovery. Your navigation data will allow us to conquer 12 star systems before the Union even knows we exist." He activated his weapon, again. "Now to send our message." Yuna closed her eyes, but before Thek could fire, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed and the sound of running feet echoed from the corridors. "What is happening?" Thek demanded. A Krethak soldier burst into the lab. "Commander, we are detecting unknown ships at the edge of the system. They are moving fast and not responding to our signals." Thek's expression changed from satisfaction to anger. "How many ships?" "Our sensors show 56 vessels, but they are still too far away to identify." "Union reinforcements?" Thek asked. "Unknown, Commander. But they are not using standard Union ship designs." Yuna felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe someone had heard their distress calls after all. But 56 ships against over 200 Krethak vessels? It would still be a slaughter. As if reading her thoughts, Commander Thek smiled coldly. "Whoever these fools are, they will share your fate. But first, they will watch you die." He raised his weapon toward Yuna once more, his finger moving toward the trigger. 27 light-years away, Communications Officer Siwan was having a quiet day aboard the Earth Defense Force battleship Incheon's Fury. The ship was on routine patrol near the outer colonies, checking for pirates or smuggler activity. Most days brought nothing more exciting than scanning empty cargo ships or updating navigation beacons. Siwan liked the quiet days. They gave him time to listen to music from Earth and write letters to his family back home. His parents still worried about him serving on a military ship so far from home, even though the war with the Hektari had ended 5 years ago. The soft beep from his communication console interrupted his thoughts. At first, he almost ignored it. Long-range sensors picked up random signals all the time. Space was full of radiation from old supernovas, pulsar emissions, and background noise from a dozen different sources. But this signal was different. It was clearly artificial, broadcasting on an old emergency frequency that had not been used for decades. Siwan frowned and ran the signal through the universal translation protocols. What he heard made him sit up straight in his chair. The message was broken and full of static, but the meaning was clear enough. Civilian scientists were under attack by hostile aliens. Their research ship had been captured. The attackers were planning to invade peaceful worlds. Captain Hayek, Siwan called across the bridge. You need to hear this. Captain Hayek was a veteran of the Hektari War, a man who had earned his rank by fighting in some of the bloodiest space battles in human history. His scarred face and steady eyes had seen things that would give most people nightmares. When he heard the distress, those eyes turned cold as winter. How old is this signal? Hayek asked. About 6 hours, sir, Siwan replied. The transmission lasted only 17 seconds before it was cut off. Origin point? Kepler 4042 system, sir. That is deep in unexplored space, well beyond Union territory. Captain, Hayek studied the star charts on his command screen. The Kepler 442 system was far from any major shipping routes or colony worlds. If hostile aliens were operating there, they could use it as a base to launch attacks throughout the sector. Sir, said Lieutenant Wanho from the tactical station, should we contact Earth Command for instructions? Hayek shook his head. By the time we get orders and approval, those scientists will be dead. And if these aliens are planning an invasion, every hour we delay gives them more time to prepare. The captain opened a communication channel to the ship's senior officers. Within minutes, the department heads had gathered on the bridge. Commander So-young from the Marine Detachment, Lieutenant, Commander Junho from the fighter squadrons, and Chief Engineer Daehyun all listened as Hayek played the distress call. Opinions? Hayek asked after the recording finished. Could be a trap, Commander So-young said. Unknown aliens using fake distress calls to lure our ships into ambush. Possible, Lieutenant Commander Junho agreed. But the signal came from so far away that few people would even detect it. If it is a trap, it is a very subtle one. Chief Engineer Daehyun spoke up from his station. Captain, I have been analyzing the background radiation in the signal. There are traces of exotic particles that match theoretical predictions for certain types of alien technology. This is probably genuine. Captain Hayek made his decision. Siwan, send a message to Admiral Minho at Titan Station. Tell him we have detected a potential alien threat and are moving to investigate. Request immediate backup from any available ships in the sector. Yes, sir, Siwan replied, his fingers already working on the message. Commander So-young, prepare your Marines for possible boarding actions. Lieutenant Commander Junho, get your fighters ready for launch. Chief Daehyun, I want maximum power to engines and weapons. As the senior officers moved to carry out their orders, Hayek stared at the star charts. Humanity had learned hard lessons about alien contact. The first time they met another species, the Hektari had tried to strip mine Earth's biosphere and enslave the survivors. That war had cost billions of lives and taught humans that the galaxy was not a peaceful place. But it had also taught them something else. When faced with extinction, humans did not just fight back. They fought back with a fury and determination that shocked their enemies. They turned war into an art form, strategy into science, and survival into victory. 3 hours later, Admiral Minho's response arrived at the Incheon's Fury. It was short and direct. Backup authorized. Full battle fleet en route to your position. Do not engage until we arrive unless civilians are in immediate danger. Captain Hayok smiled grimly. Admiral Minho understood the situation perfectly. If aliens were torturing and killing civilian scientists, the rules of engagement became very simple. Over the next 18 hours, ships began arriving from across the sector. The heavy battleship Busan's Wrath dropped out of hyperspace first, followed by the carriers Seoul's Pride and Gwangju's Hammer. Destroyers, frigates, and support vessels appeared in flashes of light as they completed their faster-than-light jumps. By the time the fleet was assembled, it represented the largest human military force deployed since the end of the Hectari War. 12 heavy battleships, 36 destroyers, 8 assault carriers, and dozens of support craft. Over 50,000 sailors, Marines, and fighter pilots, all armed with weapons designed to fight aliens who wanted to destroy humanity. Admiral Minho transferred his flag to the Inchin's Fury for the mission briefing. The seasoned officer studied the tactical displays showing their destination system. Intelligence suggests we are facing an unknown alien species with superior numbers but questionable technology, Admiral Minho said to the assembled ship captains. They have captured civilian scientists and are using their ship's navigation data to plan attacks on peaceful worlds. Rules of engagement, sir? Asked Captain Hayok. Simple, Admiral Minho replied. Rescue the civilians. Eliminate the threat. Ask questions later. Captain Mireille from the destroyer Daigu's Blade raised her hand. Sir, what if they want to surrender? Admiral Minho's expression grew cold. Any species that tortures civilian scientists has already shown us what they think of mercy. We will give them the same consideration they gave their prisoners. The final jump to the Kepler 442 system took 6 hours. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their sensors immediately detected the alien invasion force. Over 200 enemy ships were arranged in battle formation around a cluster of captured vessels. The alien ships looked crude and heavily armed, designed for intimidation rather than efficiency. Heat signatures showed they carried powerful weapons but poor shielding. Analysis, Commander Taehyun? Admiral Minho asked his intelligence officer. The enemy appears to be a militaristic species, sir. Ship design suggests they favor brute force over advanced technology. Their formation is aggressive but poorly coordinated. Weaknesses? They seem to rely on superior numbers rather than tactical skill. Their ships cluster together, which makes them vulnerable to area effect weapons. Admiral Minho nodded. Captain Hayok, open a communication channel to the alien fleet. The message that went out was broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Minho of the Earth Defense Force. You are holding civilian prisoners in violation of interstellar law. Release them immediately and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. The alien response came back quickly, transmitted from what appeared to be their flagship. The voice was harsh and arrogant. Human fleet, you are outnumbered, 4-1. Surrender now, and we may allow some of you to serve as slaves alongside the other prisoners. Admiral Minho looked around at his officers. Every face showed the same expression. Cold anger, professional hatred, the look of predators who had just been challenged by prey. Very well, Admiral Minho said quietly. Show them what humans do to species that threaten civilians. War Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship Bone Crusher, studying the tactical displays with growing amusement. The human fleet looked impressive at first glance, but numbers did not lie. His invasion force had over 200 warships, against their 56 vessels. The alien ships appeared crude and primitive to Krethak eyes. Their hulls were angular and scarred, lacking the sleek organic curves that marked truly advanced technology. They looked like something a barely civilized species would build after discovering faster-than-light travel. War Commander, his tactical officer reported, the human vessels are moving into attack formation. They appear to be preparing for battle. Vex laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Fools, do they not understand simple mathematics? We outnumber them nearly 4-1. He activated the communication system to address the human fleet directly. I am War Commander Vex of the Krethak Empire. Your pathetic flotilla cannot hope to defeat the might of our invasion force. Surrender now, and I may allow some of you to serve as slaves." The human response was immediate and devastating. Captain Hyuk's battleship Inchin's Fury opened the engagement by firing a spread of kinetic impactors. The projectiles were solid tungsten rods accelerated to 15% of light speed by magnetic coils running the length of the ship's hull. War Commander Vex watched in shock as the relativistic projectiles punched through his flagship's shields, like they did not exist. The tungsten rods vented atmosphere and debris across several thousand kilometers of space, leaving gaping holes in the Bone Crusher's armored hull. "Damage report," Vex shouted. "Severe hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, his damage control officer reported. "We have lost primary power to forward weapons and life support systems." Before Vex could respond, more human ships opened fire. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a systematic demonstration of why humans were considered the apex predators of their home system. Every human vessel fought with a coordination and precision that shocked the Krethak commanders. Their weapon systems were designed not just to disable enemy ships but to utterly destroy them, leaving no chance for recovery or retreat. Lieutenant Commander Junho led a squadron of human fighters through the Krethak formation, targeting engine clusters with surgical precision. Each pilot flew like their personal honor depended on perfect execution, weaving through defensive fire that would have destroyed any normal spacecraft. The human fighters were small, fast, and deadly. They moved in perfect coordination, sharing targeting data through quantum communication links. When one pilot marked a target, all nearby fighters could see it instantly. When one ship took damage, others moved to cover its retreat. "How are they coordinating so perfectly?" Vex demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown, War Commander. Their communication frequencies are heavily encrypted. It is as if they share a single mind controlling all their ships." Meanwhile, Colonel So-young's Marine assault units were launching boarding actions against the captured civilian vessels. The Krethak guards posted on those ships sent desperate reports back to the main fleet. "The humans are not normal soldiers," one guard reported before his communication went silent. "They move through our ship like ghosts. Our weapons cannot touch them, but they strike us down with perfect accuracy." The human Marines had trained for boarding actions their entire careers. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed while protecting them from enemy fire. Their helmets displayed tactical information that turned individual soldiers into parts of a single military machine. Each Marine knew exactly where every other Marine was located, what targets they were engaging, and what objectives needed to be completed. They moved through hostile ship corridors with the efficiency of a computer program, clearing each room with practiced precision. War Commander Vex realized that his invasion force was being systematically dismantled. The humans were not just fighting back. They were methodically destroying every Krethak ship they could reach while simultaneously rescuing the prisoners. "Order all ships to concentrate fire on their flagship," Vex commanded. "If we destroy their command vessel, the others may surrender." The Krethak fleet turned their weapons toward Admiral Minho's battleship, Busan's Wrath. Energy beams and missile salvos converged on the human flagship from dozens of directions, but the human admiral had anticipated this tactic. Busan's Wrath was protected by overlapping shield generators and point defense systems that intercepted most incoming fire. The few weapons that penetrated its defenses struck armor plating designed to absorb tremendous punishment. "Their flagship is too heavily protected," Vex's weapons officer reported. "We cannot break through its defenses." "Then target their smaller ships," Vex ordered. "Surely those cannot all be so heavily armored." But the human fleet fought as a single coordinated unit. When Krethak ships focused fire on one target, other human vessels moved to intercept the attacks. When a human ship took serious damage, it withdrew behind the protection of its undamaged companions. Captain Mirai's destroyer Daegu's Blade demonstrated human tactical thinking when it found itself surrounded by 4 Krethak cruisers. Instead of trying to fight its way out, the ship launched a spread of quantum torpedoes and then used its superior speed to lead the enemy ships into the blast radius. The torpedoes detonated in a cascade of exotic matter that tore apart the Krethak vessels. Molecular structure. In seconds, 4 enemy cruisers were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas. "War Commander," his communication officer called out. "We are receiving surrender requests from 37 of our ships. They report severe damage and request permission to withdraw." Vex felt his blood turn cold. In less than 1 hour of combat, the human fleet had crippled nearly a fifth of his invasion force. His own flagship was barely functional, held together by emergency power and the determination of his crew. "No retreat," Vex snarled. "We are Krethak warriors. We do not run from inferior species." But even as he spoke, more of his ships were being destroyed. The humans had learned to target critical systems with devastating efficiency. Engine compartments exploded in brilliant flares. Weapon systems melted under directed energy attacks. Command bridges were vented into space by kinetic projectiles. The human fleet was not just winning. They were demonstrating a level of military competence that the Krethak had never encountered before. Every shot was precisely aimed. Every movement was coordinated with surgical precision. Every tactic was executed flawlessly. War Commander Vex realized with growing horror that his species had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked what they thought was a weak, peaceful species. Instead, they had awakened something that fought, with the cold efficiency of a natural-born predator. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "we have lost 60% of our fleet. The humans have rescued all the prisoners and are now hunting down our remaining ships." Vex looked at his displays and saw the truth. The battle was over. His mighty invasion force had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing in terror from human warships that pursued them with relentless determination. "Order all surviving ships to retreat," Vex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Set course for home. We must warn the Empire about these creatures." As the surviving Krethak ships desperately tried to escape into hyperspace, Admiral Minho's voice came over the communication channels one final time. "This is what happens to species that harm innocent civilians. Remember this lesson well." Dr. Yuna sat in the medical bay of the human battleship Busan's Wrath, still trying to understand what had happened. 3 hours ago, she had been certain that she and her crew were going to die. The Krethak had been preparing to execute them, as an example to other species. Then the humans had arrived. The rescue operation had been like nothing Yuna could have imagined. Human Marines had moved through the captured research vessel with perfect coordination, eliminating Krethak guards. Without harming a single Villani prisoner, they worked with surgical precision, their movements coordinated through technology that seemed almost magical. "Dr. Yuna," a gentle voice said beside her. "How are you feeling?" She looked up to see a human medical officer checking her condition. Like all humans, he was shorter than the Villani, but much more solidly built. His species clearly came from a world with higher gravity than her own. "I am confused," Yuna admitted. "Your people saved us, but the way you fought, it was terrifying." The human doctor nodded understandingly. "We know we can seem frightening to peaceful species, but sometimes violence is necessary to protect innocent life. Is that why you came so far from your home worlds? To protect strangers?" "Yes," the doctor replied simply. "When we heard your distress call, we could not ignore it. Your people were in danger from creatures that wanted to hurt them. We could not allow that to happen." Yuna thought about the battle she had witnessed through the viewing ports of her ship. The human fleet had destroyed the Krethak invasion force with mechanical efficiency. Ships that had seemed impossibly powerful just hours earlier had been reduced to burning wreckage. "How many of your people died saving us?" she asked. 12, the doctor said quietly. 12 brave souls who gave their lives so that you and your crew could live. Yuna felt tears form in her large eyes. 12 humans had died to save 6 Villani scientists they had never met. The sacrifice seemed incredible to her peaceful people. Admiral Minho entered the medical bay, accompanied by several of his senior officers. The human commander was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes, but Yuna could see the strength beneath his quiet manner. "Dr. Yuna," Admiral Minho said, "I hope you are feeling better. We need to discuss what happened here." "Of course, Admiral," Yuna replied. "But first I must thank you for saving our lives. Your people risked everything to help complete strangers." Admiral Minho smiled slightly. Any decent species would do the same. Now we need to understand the threat these Krethak represent. What did they learn from your ship's computers? Yuna felt a chill of fear. Everything. Our navigation charts, communication networks, colony locations. They have detailed maps of dozens of star systems in Union space. That is what we were afraid of, Admiral Minho said grimly. This attack was not random. It was reconnaissance for a larger invasion. Captain Hyok stepped forward. Dr. Yuna, how many ships do you think the Krethak Empire has? I do not know, Yuna admitted. Commander, Tech spoke of conquering 12 star systems, but he made it sound like that was only the beginning. There could be thousands of Krethak ships preparing for war. Admiral Minho exchanged glances with his officers. Then we need to warn your Galactic Union immediately. They need to prepare for invasion. With respect, Admiral, Yuna said carefully, the Union has no military forces. We are peaceful explorers and traders. We have never fought a war. Then they will need help, Captain Hyok said firmly. The Krethak will not stop with your people. Species like that always want more territory, more slaves, more conquests. 3 days later, the human fleet escorted the repaired Harmony's Edge to the nearest Union space station. The arrival of 56 human warships caused immediate panic among the station's inhabitants. Most species in the galaxy had never seen military vessels designed for actual combat. The station commander, a nervous Altarian named Governor Kellex, met with Admiral Minho in the station's main conference room. Representatives from a dozen different species sat around the table, all staring at the human admiral with mixtures of fear and curiosity. Admiral Minho, Governor Kellex said, his voice shaking slightly. We are grateful that you rescued our Villani friends, but your presence here is causing considerable concern among our citizens. Why? Admiral Minho asked. We came to help. Your ships, Governor Kellex explained. They are clearly designed for war. Most Union species believe that such weapons should not exist. Admiral Minho looked around the table at the assembled aliens. They were all thin, pale, delicate creatures adapted to peaceful worlds. None of them looked like they had ever faced real danger. Governor, Admiral Minho said patiently, the Krethak Empire is preparing to invade Union space. They have your star charts, your communication codes, and detailed information about your defenses, or rather your lack of defenses. Perhaps we can negotiate with them, suggested a Centaurian diplomat. All intelligent species can be reasoned with if we find the right approach. They executed prisoners for entertainment, Captain Hyok said, bluntly. They plan to enslave entire worlds. What exactly do you think you can negotiate? The room fell silent. Finally, Dr. Yuna stood up from her seat. I have seen both species now, she said to the assembled delegates. The Krethak are predators who view all other life as prey. The humans are predators who have chosen to protect the prey. She looked directly at Admiral Minho. My people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You traveled across the galaxy to save strangers, and you lost 12 of your own people doing it. We did what any decent species would do, Admiral Minho replied. No, Yuna said firmly. We would not have done it. We would have sent messages of concern and held meetings to discuss the problem. We would have formed committees to study the issue. But we would not have sent our children to die for strangers. She turned to address the other Union representatives. The humans are offering us something we have never had before. Real protection. Not just promises or treaties, but actual military force that can defend our worlds against species like the Krethak. Governor Kellex looked uncomfortable. What would such protection cost us? Trade agreements, Admiral Minho said simply. Technology sharing, formal recognition of our territorial claims, and bases for our fleets in Union space. You want to occupy our worlds? A Rigelian delegate asked nervously. We want to protect them, Captain Hyok corrected. There is a difference. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. 3 months later, the Galactic Union formally voted to accept human military protection. The agreement was signed on the same day that Krethak raids stopped completely throughout the galaxy. Within a year, human battle fleets were patrolling Union space. The sight of human warships became as common as trade vessels at major space stations. Most Union citizens learned to see them not as threats but as guardians. The distress call that had brought the human fleet to action became known throughout the galaxy as the Liberation Signal. It marked the moment when the most dangerous species in known space decided to become protectors instead of conquerors. Dr. Yuna returned to her research work, but she never forgot the lesson she had learned. The galaxy was not the peaceful place her people had imagined. It contained predators like the Krethak who viewed kindness as weakness and mercy as foolishness. But it also contained predators like the humans, who had somehow learned to use their deadly skills to protect the innocent rather than exploit them. They were warriors who fought not for conquest, but for justice. As she looked up at the stars from her laboratory, Yuna felt safer than she ever had before. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the darkness, watching for threats, ready to respond to any distress call that might need their help. The age of peaceful expansion in the galaxy was over, but the age of protected peace had begun.